Hey folks, Pulse here, welcome back to another Pokemon Masters video, and you guys kept on asking for me to make a tier list video, and I guess I'll do it. Like, if you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. I mean, here's the thing though, like, I'm not a huge fan of doing this because, I mean, it's a PvE game, and, like, everything is just, like, in this game, everything is so incredibly situational that it's really hard to, say, in a lot of scenarios, which one's better than the other. But I guess you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. But anyways, we're gonna go over strikers in this one, and obviously, disclaimer, all that stuff, tier list, completely subjective. Like, it's almost impossible to make an objective tier list. Like, and again, it just changes so often, right? In games like this, every time there's new content, because a lot of this stuff is, I do take usability into account, right? So basically, what I'm taking into account is, and we're doing for co-op, right? Strikers co-op. So the stuff we're taking into account is how strong an individual unit is, its usability, or how strong it is in randos, and how good is it, if you're playing in an organized play. So really hard to factor all those in, but I'll try my best. Again, purely subjective. If you disagree with whatever, fabulous, good for you. I don't care if you disagree. I don't care how you disagree. Whatever. No one's going to agree 100% on this. That's fine. I don't really care. So, with that being said, let's get into this. So, with strikers, like, basically, if you see over here, these are all the strikers. And no, they're not all F tier. I'm just putting them there so it's easier for me to organize, right? But I have here all the strikers plus that are released, plus 2 tech units, being Will and Zatu, and then Crash Awake, just because it's really hard to put these two as, like, actual tech units, because they're not really tech units. They're more, I mean, Zatu is probably more of a tech unit, but these guys are, they're strikers. They're basically strikers. I don't know why they categorize. Well, I actually know why they probably categorize Crash Awake as a tech unit, but yeah, these guys are strikers. Come on. Okay, Zatu also has the flinch thing and Confuse Ray, maybe. But these guys are basically strikers. I'm putting them in, and these are, like, they're borderline strikers. And there are a lot of borderline striker tech units in this game. I'm not going to put all of them in. These are the only 2 exceptions I'm making. If I put, it's just, it's hard to find a line between tech and striker. So these are the only 2 I'm putting in. There's a lot of other tech units that could also double as strikers, right? Agatha is one, right? That folks talk about. There's quite a few. Grimsy in some scenarios, maybe Koga, but those are more, more. It's not. They're not, like, as obvious as Will or Crash Awake. So again, these are the 2 I'm putting in here, and everyone else is obviously a striker, unless I made some mistake over here, but I don't think I did. So anyways, let's begin with this. So should we start from bottom to top, or should we go top to bottom? Let's go, I don't know, let's just go from the first row of these, like, completely random. Okay, so Mewtwo's our first one. Mewtwo is S tier. People might disagree with this one a bit, just because Mewtwo, unlike stuff like Lycanroc or Sceptile or whatever, Mewtwo doesn't exactly have a special attack booster or whatever, but Mewtwo has crit buff, which is honestly all the justification I need to throw it in. Well, not all of the, a huge part of the justification why I throw Mewtwo in S tier. Again, crit is probably the best stat boost that you could use in this game. Crit is just incredibly powerful. It ignores, the shield damage reduction stuff. That's just incredible, right? In comparison to, like, all the other stats. So even if you do have, +6 special attack, +6 attack, and you don't have crit buffs, that just does hinder your ability a bit. And just overall, Mewtwo is probably among the best just rando pickup co-op characters in the game. Psychic and chat and Ghost type, so you got those two options. You don't have like a a scenario where you actually need more than whatever Mewtwo's already got. Obviously, special attack buffs would be nice. That would make Mewtwo even better, but it's not really necessary for Mewtwo. And also, if you look at the content that Mewtwo clears, Mewtwo like clears so much content that Mewtwo is not even super effective against. Like, you could throw in Mewtwo into so many scenarios and Mewtwo would just do well, and that's basically what a lot of the other top tier strikers do as well. I mean, and again, one other thing I do want to talk about this tier list. My tier list is kind of short. Like, it doesn't have that many tiers, so a lot of them will be squished together. And also, if you could see, instead of like A, B, C, I went with A plus, A, and then A minus, because I think these three tiers, the sync pairs in these three tiers are honestly kind of similar. Like, I don't find them too much apart. So, speaking of those tiers, let's throw in the next one. So, Nolan and Pinsir, I put in A plus. Might be a bit too high for some people, but personally, I think Nolan just does like so much damage once he actually accumulates that. And also, the biggest dub for Nolan was this previous co-op change, right? Which does make spammable attacks way more valuable than they ever were, right? Especially dealing with Unity and all that stuff. It's just easier to spam. Fury Cutter, you spam that, and then you're contributing to Unity, and you're doing decent damage, and it's super quick. So and also Mega Pinsir's stats are pretty crazy as well. Also, Mewtwo's other justification is it has crazy stats, so there's that as well. But yeah, there are some hindrances, and there are some reasons why I'm not putting him in S tier. Is one reason is Fury Cutter's not 100% accuracy. If you miss that once, like, your damage just drops. Like, it's pretty insane. And also, you kind of have to at least use sync move once. And once you use your sync move, like, your Fury Cutter damage is just broken. And also, you have to use that healing move from time to time, maybe, especially after your opponent sync moves. Even though you have Impervious, your opponent sync moves won't decrease your stats, but it does, deal a lot of damage, which you probably want to heal. And also, the other reason, or some other reason why Pinsir's not in, the absolute top tier is, again, accuracy's an issue. The Mega thing's sort of an issue. That was an issue as well. But Pinsir also does not have crit buffs for the most part. Like, you do have the heal and all that stuff, which, even if you want to use the heal and / speed buff, that's usually late in the game. And usually, by then, again, Pinsir, it has a spammable move. The speed buff thing isn't really that relevant. And also, another point, a positive point for Pinsir is Pinsir's decently self-sufficient. You don't need any move gauge buffers, speed buffers to help Pinsir out. Pinsir could usually just go in. It would be nice to have a crit buffer, but it's not necessary most of the time. So, moving on. Gardena and Roserade. This is an interesting one. I'd put Gardena and Roserade into A tier. It's definitely a worse Sceptile. The stats just aren't there, but, Leaf Storm's just a really, really solid move. And overall, the stats thing, with crit and all that stuff, Roserade just does really well as a Trico / Sceptile replacement. So, that's why I'll throw it in A tier. So, moving on, Blue and Pidgeot. Blue and Pidgeot I also put in A tier, even though, despite the fact that Blue and Pidgeot is an AoE attacker, which obviously counts against it, but it does have crit buff and accuracy buff, which is really, really nice, right? Crit buff, and, it has good speed and all that stuff. Its special attack after it Mega Evolves is insane. So it needs to Mega before it does a lot of stuff. But before it Megas, like, Blue and Garchomp might be the two AoE attackers that actually do decent damage before they Mega. So there's that as well, for AoE attackers, obviously, because you do have the crit buff. And your special attack stat isn't terrible either. So, moving on, next one, Norman. Why is Norman here? Where should I put Norman? Norman, let's throw Norman in D tier. Norman is actually not as bad as people think. Norman has Double Edge, which has like really, really good base power. It's like 160 something, or 167 or something. But a Norman has really, really good damage. Normal type, obviously, that kind of sucks. But Double Edge, downsides are recoil. It's a normal type, all that stuff. But he does do decent damage for the most part. Moving on, next one, Kingdra. I'd also throw Kingdra. I'd probably throw Kingdra in a tier lower than Norman. Being, Draco Meteor does a lot of freaking damage to start off, but again, the drop off just kind of sucks, and Kingdra's stats aren't the craziest. And again, I just think Lance is a better, much better special striker, dragon striker. So there's that factor as well, and Kingdra, again, stats are kind of an issue, so that's why Kingdra's kind of down here. So, moving on. Next one, Zatu. This one I throw in D. This guy's extremely situational. Like, extremely situational. But, in the right situation, he's incredibly strong. In the wrong situation, the dude's completely useless. That's why I was kind of hesitant to even put Zatu in the conversation at all. Just because, like, in the wrong situation, the dude's doing nothing, basically. I mean, I guess you could go Confuse Ray or Air Slash, try to get some flinches, but, that's just tech territory, right? So, again, if you can't utilize stored power in a situation, if you can't, whatever, right? Eevee obviously would help that, but, that's not out yet. Phoebe would help as well, but, you would need either a lot of setup or the right opponents to make Zatu really, really good. So, that's why Zatu isn't much higher. Moving on, this guy, Machamp, Bruno Machamp, he would have been much, much better if Cross Chop wasn't 80% accuracy. Like, Bruno actually has a really, really interesting and honestly good set, but the 80 accuracy is just unacceptable. Like, yikes. Like, 3-bar move, 80% accuracy. He's got, like, the crit stuff. He's got all that other stuff. But just the accuracy is just, like, it's a killer. It honestly is a killer for Bruno. Which Bruno could have been much better. But, again, unfortunately, it is what it is. Moving on to next fighting type. I have Lucario one tier above Bruno. You could have them in the same tier. Lucario, the reason why I'm throwing Lucario here is close combat is incredibly powerful. You don't need too much setup with Karina. You got your staple. You got Dire Hit there, which is more than enough. The Mega Evolution for, after Lucario Mega Evolves, incredibly strong. Even before Lucario Mega Evolves is still really, really good, right? With close combat, just too much damage, right? But downsides are pretty obvious as well. This is the classic Glass Cannon, right? 1 or 2 close combats in, and then, your opponent touches you, and you're basically, half your HP is gone. And that's being generous sometimes, right? So there's that. For poor Lucario. Moving on. Although A- is not good, or not bad, right? So, it's still a decent tier, I think. Moving on, next one, Toucannon. I'm not a huge fan of Toucannon personally. And again, obviously, as I said before, this is completely subjective. I have my own biases. Everyone who makes tier lists, they have biases. If they tell you they're unbiased, they're lying. Come on, right? This is completely subjective, and I'm telling you, I have certain biases, and I'm just not a huge fan of Toucannon. Some other biases I probably have is I kind of value accuracy a bit more than other people would, so there's that to consider as well. And yeah, so anyways, I'll get to the other biases if I ever mention them, right? If they ever come up. So moving on, Toucannon, honestly, not a huge fan. I'll put it in E. Toucannon does decent damage, but Toucannon is just really, honestly, straight up bad if you're trying to, farm Unity in co-op, which, again, would be very, very difficult to do in randos. If you do have an organized team, it might be a bit better for Toucannon, but with randos, Toucannon just, yikes. But again, once you if you could get it going, it does decent damage. But otherwise, it's kind of not that great, unfortunately. So, moving on, Cynthia. Cynthia is, I would say, A tier. Same with Blue, because again, AoE attacker with crit buffs, And by herself, she's not decent. She's not bad. Like, you could throw Cynthia into randos, and you would do generally fine for an 8. Like, because again, Cynthia good stats. Mega Garchomp has really really good stats. I wouldn't see. It's nothing. It's not like Lycanroc stats, but it's not bad, right? Earthquake, even though it's AOE, does okay damage. Again, the most important reason why I threw Garchomp up here is, again, just the crit buff and speed buff. That just helps so much. And obviously, you also have attack buff as well. But if you are in a organized comp, if you have people bringing in Acerola to throw up Sandstorm, you have people bringing in, whatever else, Rosanta to help with the move gauges and all that, this guy, Garchomp is much higher, right? But just taking both of those into account, Cynthia's not there. Cynthia, again, in an organized comp, people bringing supports, Acerola, she would definitely be here, maybe even here. I don't know. This might be a bit too much, but, but otherwise, Cynthia's a pretty solid A. And again, remember, A plus A and A minus, I don't see their difference to be that crazy. So, moving on. Next one, Chandler, I guess. Chandler's value honestly diminished a lot with Mewtwo coming out. So, I mean, still a solid special striker with, I guess, decent damage output. Bulkiness is kind of suspect, but overall, okay-ish kit. There's not too much else to say about it. Moving on, Infernape, I'll throw it in D. Infernape's, got physical attacks and special attacks, which is definitely a plus, but it's just, I guess, sometimes difficult to organize, and the dude's special attack isn't that, it isn't insane, right? So that's why it's not higher. So moving on. Next one, Chris. Chris I would put in A+. Reason being, and reason why Chris is not in S+ is, Chris is not consistent enough to put in S+. Same with Nolan, right? Nolan's not consistent enough. Chris has probably, aside from Hyper Beam, one of the craziest damage, like one-hit moves in Mega Kick. Especially, it turns into water type, so it's not just normal type, so you actually have type coverage with that. And also, pick up the pace guarantees. Like, pick up the pace is both, like, a really, really good skill and also a detriment, because pick up the pace with speed buffs, with sure hits, with guaranteed crits, like, a pick up the pace Mega Kick will do insane amounts of damage. But the problem is you can only use it twice, but afterwards, you just have to hope your Mega Kick hits, and also you're not getting crit. But if you also have a support with Chris that also buffs Chris's a crit rate, that would obviously help a lot. The only thing that Chris would need some more help in is just the organized comp part, because like if you're in an organized team, we just don't have that many accuracy buffers in the game, like, or any reliable ones. Like Rosa, sure, you could do that, but very unreliable. It's completely RNG. And the other one is just Metatite, which again, limited amounts of uses, but is very, very good for Chris, I would say. So that's why I threw Chris up here, and why she's not higher and not lower, because again, that first 4 to 6 turns, insane amounts of damage with that Mega Kick. Moving on, Elisa, I would put in A tier. Again, these are not, like, I'm not ranking these in order. These are just in the same tier. Like, I'm not saying Guardian is better than Elisa. It's just the order I dragged them up on. Elisa, obviously, downsides are pretty obvious. The recoil. It's the recoil, right? There's nothing else I can say about it. But without the recoil, Elisa does a lot of damage. Electric types are really, really, it's a much needed typing, right? Electric strikers, and just good damage. What can I say? And decently bulky. But obviously that's to compensate for the recoil and stuff. But again, and the recoil is not terrible. You can still heal up, right? You have healing moves and all that. So again, really, really decent stat. Just recoil hurts her a lot. So that's unfortunate. Moving on. Price, I'd put Price in E. The reason why Price isn't lower, because I don't think Price is that great. Just because, it's only Ice type. What can you do? I mean, Price's set is not terrible, per se, but the stats could be better. So there's that. And also AoE is just whatever, right? Moving on, Lance. Lance, this is probably the most controversial one. Lance, like, if you're in an organized comp, if you have, if you're running Lance and then someone else is running, like a Phoebe or Rose Santa or whatever buffer, right? Or Torchic, right? Torchic is a great one for Lance. Lance would be like here or even here, right? Because the amount of damage that Hyper Beam just could do is insane if you do not have to worry about the move gauge issue, and also if you had any self buffs with either crit and or special attack. So with an organized comp, Lance is insane. Problem is, if you're not in an organized comp, you're just running with randos, Lance is just almost borderline mediocre. And again, Hyper Beam still does a lot of damage. But after that, like, your move gauge is gone. You start the game, you got almost full move gauge, you throw out a Hyper Beam, and then what can you do? Like, you go grab a drink, watch a movie, read a book, come back, and then the move gauge might almost be full. Obviously an exaggeration, but it just takes too much time to get your next Hyper Beam. Obviously, you could use Now or Never to cut your HP in half and then restore move gauge, but, like, what the heck? That's cutting your HP in half. And even though, Lance is decently bulky, but if you use that in the wrong time, your opponent hits you with something, especially if it's a really hard hit, like a Hyper Voice from Lycron, like, you're dead. Like, you just threw out a Hyper Beam and then died. What was the point? Okay, maybe you got 2 in, because you got 1 in after Now or Never, and then you're just dead. It's just unfortunate for Lance. And also, Lance does not have any stat buffs. It doesn't have any, don't have Dire Hit, don't have special attack up or whatever. So that's why in randos, like, Lance is just almost Lance is just not that great in with randos if you don't have any supports or whatever on your comp. So that's why I'll throw Lance in A-. I could see an argument for maybe A, but just to be safe, A-. Again, with supports, dude's insane. Without supports, kind of struggling there, right? Moving on, Alolan Raichu. Personally, not a fan because, again, AoE units they just don't do that well. Alolan Raichu, I could maybe see someone putting it in D. That's fine. I just personally put it down here. You know what? Yeah. I still think. Actually, no. Let's put it in D. Reason being, like, it does have some decent buffs overall, and, like, discharge damage isn't terrible. So there's that as well. Like, it's just an okay-ish AoE attacker. It's nothing crazy, but it's not bad either. So there we go with Alolan Raichu. Moving on to Reuniclus. Reuniclus is unfortunate. Completely overshadowed by Mewtwo. Like, they have pretty good, like, special attack stats, but, like, Reuniclus's kit is just so... It's so restrictive. Like, you would need supports to make her really, you need supports to make her much better than she is, and her passives are honestly just complete, like, it's so situational. Like, this is an extremely situational unit for the most part, so that's unfortunate, I guess. So moving on, Gallio, the new free-to-play legendary unit. So Gallio obviously has its really Gallio's highs and lows are. Gallio, I would really compare it to Lance a lot, because, like Lance, in an organized play where you have supports, where you have stuff to refill its move gauge, if you have something to give it crit, this guy is insane. It has Impervious, right? It has Sunsteel Strike, which ignores all the damage reductions stuff, the crit, immunity, all that stuff. It's great, right? And also Focus Blast, insane amounts of damage. And you have natural +6, right, to both attack, special attack, and accuracy at the cost of 6 move bars. So if you're in an organized comp, this guy's really, really good. I probably even, I don't know, and maybe S or A+. But again, when you're playing with randos, same issue. You don't have, first of all, you don't have crit. Move gauge is a huge issue for Gallio. Again, you're like Lance, you're just waiting forever for the move gauge to recover. And if you're not going to do that, then you're just not going to use Focus Blast, because Focus Blast is not going to hit if you're not going to use your buff, which again costs 3 bars, right? Which you basically have to use it. So at worst, or I guess at best, like, you know, you get to use a move after you use a buff. But if you're trying to use both buffs, then it's just going to take you forever to use any moves. You're not contributing to unity. You're not helping out, you know, you're not doing, like, your opponents are just going to break your chains, unless, I guess, you just go for Metal Claw, which is honestly whatever. So, again, Gallio, organized comp, really, really good. With randos, not so much. Moving on, Lycanroc. This is an easy one. Lycanroc still, you know, obviously top tier. Reason being, 1 hard as diamonds, you get a 100% crit rate on Stone Edge. There's that. Also, insane physical damage. Like Lycanroc, you do not need. I mean, I guess you could get. No, actually, no. Lycanroc, you don't need supports at all. Like, 3-bar move, big deal, right? But you get 100% crit on Stone Edge and 100% hit as well, right? Even though, you know, low accuracy, 1 hard as diamonds, and then you guarantee crit, guarantee hit on Stone Edge. Also got 2x attacks, and also you increase your speed every time you crit, and remember, you crit every single time. So the more you get in the battle, the more your speed increases, the less the move gauge becomes an issue. So that's why this, you know, Lycanroc's kind of insane. Moving on, Trico I'd also throw in this category, which, more so Sceptile than Trico. But, again, just insane amounts of damage, insane stats. What can you do, right? You get +6 at the cost of 3 move bars, which is something that hurts Trico. Which is why I think Trico is probably not as good as Lycanroc. But, again, I'm not making that too many elaborate tiers. That's why I'm just throwing them into the same tier, right? But Trico does benefit from the new co-op changes, where Bullet Seed, again, it's a 2-gauge move, obviously helps with Unity, all that stuff, and Bullet Seed does decent damage as well. And also, in comparison to Leaf Storm, Bullet Seed doesn't decrease your special attack every time you use it, so there's that as well. And if Leaf Storm didn't decrease Trico's special attack, it would be insane. Also, Leaf Storm's accuracy is not 100%, so there's that as well. I know I'm talking about a lot of smack about Sceptile, but, like, if these things were an issue, if none of those that I just mentioned were an issue, and also has Dire Hit Plus, right, Trico would be the best unit in the game, or Sceptile. But, you know, that's not the issue. That's not the case, which is why Trico's vulnerable. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about Olivia and why she's not perfect. Hard as Diamonds also decreases her special. Like, she's a glass cannon, especially against special attackers that do decent damage, right? Against special attackers that do decent damage, you're just dead. Anyways, moving on. I'm gonna skip Bugsy first over here and talk about Hilda. So Hilda, I'll throw in A as well with Elisa. I personally like Hilda a bit better. Hilda takes a while to set up because you need 3 flame charges, and then you could boost your attack up to max. Hilda also doesn't have Dire Hit, which kind of sucks. It doesn't have any crit boost, and also the biggest issue obviously is recoil. But Hilda does have potions, so there's that as well. But recoil, again, same situation with all the other recoilers. If someone just queues up a move right after you use a recoil, you're kind of screwed, right? Especially if it's a huge recoil, right? But if Elisa, if Hilda, if Lance didn't have the recoil stuff, they'd be top tier. Well, I'm not sure about top tier, especially since they don't have crit. But they would be really, really good. But the recoil obviously hurts, so that's why Hilda's a bit down here. So, moving on, Pikachu, we'll skip Pikachu as well. Let's go to Crash Awake. Crash Awake, I put in D tier. Crash Awake, again, +6 in 2 turns with Crash, and then you also got crit buffs as well. Just overall, just solid damage. Really, it's a decent replacement, just like how Roserade is a decent replacement for Sceptile. Crash Awake's a decent replacement for Feraligatr, right? I personally think Roserade's a better replacement for Trico than Crash Awake is for Feraligatr, but, there are certain places where I guess Fraliator or Crash Awake does maybe even better than Fraliator, especially the later you go into a game. Again, Chris's buffs are just so it's hard to even call them buffs. They're just so limited. She's not as consistent as Crash Awake is, but Chris just does so much more damage per hit. So that's why Crash Awake is not as good as Chris, but again, a decent replacement, and that's why Tech Units over here does decent damage. Moving on, the next one we got Marshall. Marshall, not a huge fan. I just think both Bruno and Lucario is better, but I guess if you don't have anything, he's not terrible. Like Bruno's kit, again, the only issue is the accuracy. If it wasn't an accuracy issue, Bruno's kit actually works synergized really, really well in with each other. So again, Marshall could have been better, but unfortunately isn't. So moving on, I'm going to skip Iris as well. I'm going to talk about Houndoom. Houndoom, I would place in D. I could see an argument for potentially A-. Like, her buffs are good, although I'm not a huge fan of her special attack buff because you can kind of take some damage to make it better than it is, right? But again, it's not that big of an issue. It's still a good buff. It's still a good buff. So my biggest issue with Houndoom is its damage before it megas. Like, it's hardly a striker before it megas. Like, sure, it has dire hit buffs and a decent special attack buff as well. But Snarl and Bite, they don't do damage. They just don't do damage. Like, even among AoE moves, Snarl does no damage. Like, does not a lot of damage, per target, obviously. And it makes sense. It's a 2-bar move. Snarl does, however, decrease special attack, which is nice. But that's more like a tech thing. That's not a striker thing. That's like a tech thing. Like, Houndoom's trying to be both a striker and a tech. And I think just Houndoom's just putting too much onto itself that it's just not good at it, not extremely good at either. But once Houndoom Mega evolves, like, that's a completely different story, right? So once you get Houndoom to Mega, then you're gonna deal boatloads of damage. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Let's talk about Seabold. Personally, not a huge fan of Seabold either. I guess Seabold got slightly better with the co-op changes, so maybe you could throw Seabold in the D tier as well, but I'll personally keep Seabold over here, just because, like, Seabold just does not do too much damage. Obviously, the Unity stuff, that helps, but, like, in comparison to Crash or Wake, I guess Seabold is kind of comparable to Crash or Wake, I guess, but I just think Crash or Wake is just much more consistent than Seabold. That's why I'm not throwing Seabold any higher than that. But again, I could see an argument for D as well. Moving on, Roxy. The Roxy was a tough one. Roxy, I was going between D or E. I kind of settled on E. Roxy, like, she does okayish damage, and she can also take some hits as well. And the one of the reasons that I was considering her for D was just because, like, she's, like, kind of the only, like, pure striker that's pure poison striker in the game. Although, again, Koga, J9, in certain instances, they could be really, really good as well. I would argue in certain instances, Koga might even be better than Roxy. So, yeah, again, her kit could have been better, but she does have some decent things going for her. So, moving on, these down here, these are basically the F tiers. I don't really want to talk about them too much. I'll just go over them real quick because this video's been going on for a while. Bugsy's just terrible. After it Mega Evolves, I mean, it's better, but not better by much. Pikachu's whatever, right? Everyone knows how Pikachu is. No clue why it has Potion or why it's relevant. Iris, unfortunately, a champion, got shafted in this game. It's just kind of sad. Outrage is really whatever, right? Tyranitar, I love Tyranitar. I freaking love Tyranitar. I'm sad that Tyranitar got shafted this hard. I mean, Tyranitar does have a lot of potential to be really, really good with a sync grid update, but at the moment, it's just down here. Crandos does a lot of damage. It's a suicide bomber. What can you do? It's like, it throws in, like, a huge, like, you might as well just give Krandos like Rock Shift and Explosion. It's basically the same thing. Although Rock Shift plus Explosion might be slightly better. It depends on how much damage they're gonna give Explosion. Moving on, Mudsteel is just terrible. I mean, it tanks pretty decently. It's really useful in the Solgaleo event. I wouldn't say really. It's pretty useful in the Solgaleo event. But outside the Solgaleo event, there's no use. Just use Cynthia instead. Cynthia's just better. Tate's okay-ish. I could see an argument for E tier for Tate, but I'm personally just not that big of a fan. I mean, we got Mewtwo, we got Reuniclus, even Xatu. What are we doing? Come on. Avalog, not a fan. Either. That's why these guys are in F. F for not a fan. But you know, Avalanche does good damage. Extremely situational. And Barry is just straight up bad. Barry just does no damage. Like, I don't even know why it's a striker. Striker is supposed to do damage. Barry doesn't do that. Which is unfortunate. I love Empoleon as well, but, you know, it's unfortunate. Anyways, that's maybe for this one. Just short explanations of why I sort of rank these guys where they are. Might have missed a few explanations, but oh well. Again, completely subjective. You could totally disagree, and I will not care at all. So, anyways, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Y'all wanted me to make a tier list. I made one, so there we go. But yeah, let me know if you guys want to do like supports as well and all that stuff. I could do that if you guys want that. And yeah, you know, voice your opinions in the comments down below. I know tier lists, they're usually super controversial. Don't get rude in the comments. Don't attack people for thinking like Pikachu's S tier or Crash Awake is S plus. I mean, Crash Awake is technically S plus, but you know, just in case people don't know, I put Crash Awake in D, unfortunately. But you know, those who know, right? But anyways, again, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. You could join our Discord if you want to yell at me in Discord as well. That's in the description down there. And subscribe to the new channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. And I'll see you guys in the next one.